Contemporary literature. Someone who writes not to comfort but to confront the norm. A recipient of numerous international awards, including the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. Please welcome Miss Please welcome Miss Taslima Nasreen. I request everyone to be seated, please. Please welcome a fearless voice in contemporary literature, someone who writes not to comfort but to confront the norm. Ms. Taslima Nasreen, please give a huge round of applause. She continues to be a bold voice advocating for justice, gender equality, and free speech worldwide. Please join me in welcoming celebrated author and activist, Ms. Taslima Nasreen. And she is in conversation with a noted journalist, author, and screenwriter known for her sharp commentary on politics, society, and culture. Please welcome Ms. Adwaita Kala as they discuss on the book, Burning Roses in My Garden.
I must start by saying it's an absolute privilege to be in conversation with you, a woman who I have admired from afar for your sheer strength, grit, and unapologetic persona. I think it's so rare.
Thank you so much.
And there's so many questions I want to ask you, but we will first start with poetry. Would you like to read for us one of your favorite poems from your new book?
In English or in Bangla?
Whatever you prefer, or both. Do we have a lot of Bengalis here today? Yes? Okay. And when you select a poem, please tell us why you're choosing to read that particular poem.
You go, girl. They said, take it easy. Said, come down. Said, stop talking, shut up. They said, sit down, bow your head. Said, keep on crying, let the tears roll. What should you do in response? You should stand up now. Should stand right up, hold your back straight. Hold your head high. You should speak. Speak your mind. Speak it loudly. Scream. You should scream so loud that they must run for cover. They will say, you are shameless. When you hear that, just laugh. They will say, you have no moral character. When you hear that, just laugh louder. They will say, you are rotten. So just laugh. Laugh even louder. Hearing you laugh, they will shout, "You are a whore." When they say that, just put your hands on your hips. Stand firm and say, "Yes, yes, I'm a whore." They will stare in disbelief. They will wait for you to say more, so much more. The men amongst them will turn red and sweat. The women amongst them will dream to be a whore like you. Thank you.
So, why did you choose to read this particular poem?
Because, to encourage girls to do what they like to do and not to afraid of what people will say to them.
How long did it take you to evolve into that kind of wisdom, wherein you found the strength within yourself, despite all the other external factors, to be true to who you are?
Yeah, I don't think that somebody told me that you should be courageous, you should be fearless. But since my childhood, I found that the girls at home, that me and my sister, were not allowed to go outside and to play in the big field, but we were told to play with dolls in the corner of the house. So my brothers had all the freedom they wanted to have. And I found that in our society, women are beaten, and women are raped, women are, oppressed because of patriarchy, religion, and people are very misogynist. So I thought that I should fight against misogyny and patriarchy, and women must have equality and justice. So I studied medicine, but I used to write poetry when I was very young. I edited a poetry magazine too, and then I started writing books after finishing my medical studies. I became a doctor, but at the same time I used to write poetry, short stories, and novels. Then when I wrote against religious fundamentalism in my columns, so many thousands, hundreds of thousands of fundamentalists wanted execution by hanging, and government, instead of taking action against them, they also issued fatwa against me. They set price on my head. So instead of taking action, government, instead of taking action against them, took action against me. So arrest warrant was issued. I was forced to go into hiding in the country, and then afterwards I was forced to leave the country. And it was 30 years ago. I have been living in exile for 30 years.
I was wondering, you had the sort of South Asian life, right? You became a doctor. Everything was going good. You could have settled into marriage, society, had a productive life, even a happy life. What propelled you to take this path?
No, it was actually, all my classmates are having a very happy life. They're rich, and they're happy also. but very comfortable life. But it was not that I chose not to have that kind of life. I thought that women are oppressed, so there must not be any oppression. There should be equality between men and women. And also we have the laws based on religion, the marriage, divorce, child custody, and inheritance. Women are not getting equality. So I thought that in society, women are oppressed. They don't have even the right to go to school, to get an education, to take a job, and also they are dependent.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, we're back. The patriarchy couldn't keep us down. But so back to these choices that you've made and this life that you've been living in exile. Do you, I see in the literary world at present, there is yet to be voices such as yours that interrogate society, interrogate organized religion, and ask the right questions. Increasingly, I feel that there's an increase in self-censorship. Do you notice that change as well? Do you feel that maybe in your time you were braver and now times have changed, so younger writers are unable to take up that mantle?
I can talk about my country. Actually, it seems that we enjoyed more freedom in the past. Now, Islamization, Islamization started in 80s. Now it is in full form. And Islamist jihadist militants kind of occupied the society, and now the government took power illegally and with the support of jihadis and Islamic fundamentalists. So now recently, it's actually 2 days ago, a women committee asked the government to have uniform civil code or the laws based on equality and justice for women, and there must be equality between men and women in marriage, divorce, child custody, and inheritance. So all the Islamists are in the street now. They are against that law. They want religious laws. Even the women would not have equality, but still they want Quranic laws. So it's very dangerous time, because even the women got, the right to get an education, and women are working. Lots of women are working for garments factory, and but those Islamists, if they come to power now, they are in the power actually, but after election, if the Jamaat Islami and other Islamic party come to power, then women will have no equality. Women will not have freedom. Actually, there will be no safety for women. There will be no safety for non-Muslim people, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, and there will be no safety for free thinkers, secularists, and the people who are progressive. So it is very bad time now in Bangladesh. So we are hoping that there will be an election, and then the progressive party who believe in democracy, freedom of expression, women's rights and human rights will come to power.
I was mentioning this to you earlier as well. I watched an interview of yours about 8 years old where you were very prescient. I mean, this was at a time when India was looking at Sheikh Hasina as a stabilizing factor, as a friend, as someone who was keeping radical Islamists at bay. And you said at that point that no, there is a rise in this sentiment. And today we find ourselves at a point with Bangladesh, who was a friendly neighbor, wherein we perceive, and it is for a fact, there is a lot of negativity towards India. And as well as the attacks on Hindus, which is something you had mentioned earlier, and people were saying, oh, this is alarmist, it's not really going to happen. But we're seeing it now. What made you catch this so quick, so early, apart from the fact that it's your country and you obviously know it well?
It was, in India, many people think that Hasina was very good. Hasina was during Hasina's time, no Hindu was attacked. Actually, it is wrong. Hasina actually helped jihadists to grow. And during Hasina's time, many Hindus were attacked. Many Hindus had to leave the country. So everything she did was, maybe she got the support from India, but she also helped Islamists, a lot of Islamists, and she built unnecessary. There was no need for more madrasas and mosques, but she built thousands of mosques and madrasas, and those are breeding grounds for jihadists. So now we are seeing the result that what Hasina did. But I don't know how to solve the problems, but I think that the people, that those jihadists and militant, and those Islamists are very much anti-India and pro-Pakistan. And a few days ago, Yunus even said that they have to go to war against India. It's so strange. He got a Nobel Prize for Peace, and he's so eager to go to, start war. And he loves violence, he loves war, and mob violence. Every day we see mob violence in Bangladesh since he came to power. So he doesn't try to stop them. So day before yesterday, I wrote a letter to Norwegian Nobel Committee to take back his his prize. So he asked all the army to get ready for war. And you know that he's very much pro-Pakistan, and so he thinks that he should occupy that Seven Sisters and Chicken Neck, and then war against India, and he thinks that he will win. But anyway, we are talking about politics, but this is literature festival.
I have to shift gears again. Would you like to read another poem? Okay. So we have interludes of poetry.
But also the feminist poems? Or?
Yes, the feminist poems. I love Noor Jahan as well, or something else. For those of you who've not read the book as yet, I must say, well, Taslima finds the poem she liked to read, is that it's extremely evocative, it's deeply personal, it's political, it's the journey of a woman. I mean, there's every sur, as we say in Hindi, you can find in this book, and I would highly recommend it.
Can I read a poem in Bengali?
So we'll have someone translate. Oh, there he is, Kunal.
But is there anyone knows Bengali or only
Who
one?
knows proper Bengali? You do? In the red shirt? Yes, okay, great. We'll use your services as a translator.
Anybody can translate? No, I should read the poem first. মৃত্যুহীন মেয়ে ত্রিপলির যে মেয়েটি বোরখা পরেনি বলে রাস্তায় মার খেলো সে আমি ঢাকার যে মেয়েটি জার্সি পরে ফুটবল খেলেছে বলে হেনস্থা হলো সে আমি রিয়াদের যে মেয়েটি দেশের বাইরে একা যেতে চেয়েছিল বলে জেলে গেল সে আমি কাবুলের যে মেয়েটিকে প্রেম করার অপরাধে পাথর ছুঁড়ে মারা হলো সে আমি দামেস্কের যে মেয়েটিকে পিটিয়ে হত্যা করল তার স্বামী সে আমি কায়রোর যে মেয়েটিকে খুন করা হলো বিয়েতে রাজি হয়নি বলে সে আমি মগাদিসুর যে মেয়েটি শান্তির জন্য পথে নেমেছিল বলে খুন হলো সে আমি তেহরানের যে মেয়েটিকে হিজাব পরেনি বলে হত্যা করা হলো সে আমি আমার দোষ একটি আমি মেয়ে বলে আমাকে ঘরবন্দি করা হয় আমার নাক চোখ মুখ ঢেকে রাখা হয় আড়াল করা হয় আমার ত্বক আমার চুল আমার সর্বাঙ্গ আমার শরীর যেন শরীর নয় পাপের আড়ত আমার দোষ আমি মেয়ে বলে পৃথিবীর রূপ রস গন্ধ থেকে সরিয়ে রাখা হয় আমাকে দেখতে দেওয়া হয় না আলো আমাকে দাঁড়াতে দেওয়া হয় না দুপায়ে যেন আমি পক্ষাঘাতগ্রস্ত হয়ে জন্মেছি অধিকার পেতে চাইলে আমার টুটি টিপে ধরা হয় অধিকার পেতে চাইলে ধর্মের জাতাকলে আমাকে পেশা হয় অধিকার পেতে চাইলে আমাকে বেশ্যা বলে গালি দেওয়া হয় অধিকার পেতে চাইলে আমার গায়ে পায়ে শেকল পরানো হয় অধিকার পেতে চাইলে আমাকে হত্যা করা হয়, আমাকে আগুনে পোড়ানো হয়। পুড়ে পুড়ে আমি অঙ্গার হইনি, ইস্পাত হয়েছি। আমাকে লাথি কষাতে এসো না, চুরমার হয়ে যাবে। আমার উপর চাবুক চালাতে এসো না, একটিও কালশিটে দাগ পড়বে না গায়ে। আমাকে ধর্ষণ করতে এসো না, আমি রক্তাক্ত হব না। আমাকে কোপাতে এসো না, আমার মৃত্যু হবে না।
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
We'll get the
it's not
translation.
easy to translate.
Yeah,
the
it is
poem.
is a very long poem, but the gist is that since I am a lady, I was humiliated, I was raped, I was neglected, I was away from all of the beauty of the world. I am not allowed to go outside. So all the humiliations and all the negligence comes to me because I am a lady. Is the gist of the poem. I am Dr. Swarnindu Bhag, scientist in Council of Scientific and Research, Government of India.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Not only that, more than that.
It's more than that. Tell us more. Tell us more. There is, Taslima, there is still a rage that comes across in your poetry. Be it about the condition of women or be it about the geopolitical role the United States has played.
Yeah. And not only in my poetry, in my prose and in my columns and also in my short stories and novels. Because, you know, there are lots of people who are, lots of writers who are writing about nature and love. But when I look around, I see that so many people are suffering. So I should tell their stories. So it is not always that about happiness. I like to, you know, I like to see people happy. But when some people are happy, I'm not satisfied. I think that all people should get justice and they should have the right to be happy. They should have the right to enjoy their lives. But unfortunately, it is not happening in the world. So I talk about women, not only talk about women, I talk about the people who are oppressed. You know very well that I wrote a book called Lajja, and there it was not about women's story, it was about a minority Hindu community who were oppressed by Muslim fanatics and then who were forced to leave the country. And it's happening every day in Bangladesh. So, and the people who are minority in many countries and who do not have any rights to live as human beings, they also have been suffering, and so they can also relate to that book. So it's not only women, the people who are oppressed, who I talk about them. And I think that actually I dream of a kind of a better place that where people can live their life. I want to make this world a better place. So that I have been writing. And many people, you know, it's not that government threw me out of the country, and also I started living in Kolkata, and then I was thrown out of West Bengal too. A Bengali writer, I have no right to live in Bengal. It's very unfortunate. But anyway, so I did not stop my writing. Wherever I live, I continue my writings.
Now you say I'm being political, but Mamata Banerjee is known for this sort of appeasement and taking these steps. Otherwise, being a woman, the very least she could have done was to open the doors of a state whose language you understand, whose food, whose culture you're most comfortable with for you.
She actually banned one of my mega serial for TV that I wrote, and she asked the TV channel not to
play it.
Not to telecast that mega serial. And, but anyway, what can I do?
Your personal life, your creative life has been, compromised in a way because of this exile that is almost unforgivable. How do you make peace with it, and how do you live your life and feel alive and engaged in a way that everyday people do? And that's so important for a writer.
Yeah, but I don't get peace all the time. Even though, I have been living in exile for 30 years. I lived in Europe since 1994, when I was forced to leave my country. I lived in Europe and America for more than 10 years. Then I decided to move to Kolkata because, I wanted to live in a Bengali environment because I write in Bengali, I think in Bengali. So it was very important for me to live in a Bengali environment. So I moved to Kolkata. Even though I am a Swedish citizen and a permanent resident of United States of America, I chose India to live because I love India and I feel at home. Thank you. When I lived in Europe and also United States, I always felt I was an outsider. I never felt that it is my home, or I didn't feel at home. So I moved to Kolkata, and even though I was thrown out of West Bengal, I started living in Delhi because I could say that it's my second home, but sometimes I find that, every 1 year my residence permit get finished and then I have to apply again, and every year I find it is very difficult to get residence permit. Then I don't know what to do, if I have to move, where to go, It's very difficult time for me to accept that I would not get any permission to live here. So it is not only that I can make peace, it's still I am not settled anywhere. So I want to settle in India. I want to live here for the rest of my life. But I hope that I will get residence permit for more than 1 year. Once, few years ago, not few years ago, I think many years ago, I met Rajnath ji. At that time he was Home Minister, and I got only residence permit for 2 months. Then I said that, please give me at least for 1 year or 5 years. I said 5 years would be very good. He said that no 5 years, I would give you 50 years. I said that I don't need 50 years, but it didn't happen. Still I get for 1 year, but sometimes it is very difficult to get for 1 year even. So last time it was for 3 months, I didn't get any residence permit extension. So I tried a lot. I sent letters to Home Ministry, but they didn't reply. So I was very worried. Then I tweeted to Amit ji, and it worked. So
Then it was resolved.
yeah, finally after 3 months. But anyway, so I hope that I will not wait that long, or I would not be worried for residence permit. If I get regularly the residence permit, if they extend my residence permit every year or every 5 years, I would be happy. I think that I would get some peace then.
Fair enough. So that makes me ask you, what is home for someone like you?
You know, I think that, I have no home, actually, because I cannot go back to my country, and in my life, I will not be able to go back to my country. Now, actually, I think that when I get love and respect from people, that is my home. That is my country.
But it is transient. It is transient, comes and goes. We've seen terrible scenes on TV of you being attacked by people and having to, save yourself and move out of those situations. It's been tough. And it's not getting any easier.
Yeah, but it is the world we have to live. So you were talking about it. Yeah. Yeah, what happened to Pahalgam, no? Yes. It's very strange.
Pahalgam, the present atrocity that we've had to experience, I think brought to the fore the radicalism in a way that very few incidents have, where people were identified by religion and spared if they could recite the kalma or not. I think that's also been a bit of a wake-up call for a lot of us.
If they can recite. Yeah, it happened in Holy Artisan Cafe in I think that 2016 in Dhaka.
Yes, it was similar.
They killed, jihadists killed all the non-Muslim people, and even they killed Muslim people who could not recite that kalima. It's very bad. What can you do? All religions were reformed, all religions were evolved except one religion. So I think that as long as Islam, without this reformation and without any evolution, without this, the religion get evolved, if it remains this in a crude form, that how 1400 years ago, then how it was in 1400 years ago, if it remains this in 7th century, if it remains the same, then terrorism, as long as Islam survives, terrorism will survive. I think that it is very important that it should be evolved, it should be reformed. Otherwise, the jihadis will terrorize the countries, and people will be continue to die. So I think it is important, because if we see that Judaism and Christianity, they were also very violent. Once upon a time in that Spanish Inquisition, when people didn't believe in God, they were just church people, just killed them, and it was legal to kill them. But now that in Christian world, people are atheist, nothing happened. It is very normal. And the churches are kind of museums. But in Muslim countries, that they are building mosques and mosques. There are thousands of mosques, but still it is not enough. They need more. So what they actually are producing, jihadists, Islamists, who are very intolerant, very anti-women, very, much against non-Muslims. So it's not very good idea to build so many madrasas and mosques. I think that madrasas should be stopped, and secular school should be built, and the children should learn good education, not only, they should not read only one book, they should read many books, they should have scientific temper, and but the government, if the government use religion for their own political interests, then there is no hope.
In India now, of course, we are looking at the Uniform Civil Code, which is something that you support and have for a long time, but we're finally at a point where that could be a reality. It already is in some states like Uttarakhand. What do you make of this transition that we are making here?
So I think that that Uniform Civil Code is, every civilized country should have Uniform Civil Code. I don't know why still India doesn't have Uniform Civil Code. It should be, the people. Sometimes I wonder, those leftist people that who believe in women's equal rights, but they do not, they support kind of that Muslims, the laws based on Quran, that where women do not get equality in marriage, divorce and inheritance. I think that laws should be one law, one country. There should be one law for everyone.
I was surprised even during the triple talaq incident. I saw a lot of Muslim women actually, there was a lot of support in the lower sections of society, but a large number of what we would say urban, educated, there was a response that was, well, this is an interference. But to me, just looking at it from the outside, a practice such as that should have been outlawed long, long back. And in fact, it was, but then was reneged.
There should not be any religious laws, because all religions are anti-women. In India, in 1956, 1956, there is a Hindu Act. Since then, women are getting equality under Hindu Act, because there's now
Property rights
and other rights. They are enjoying equal rights. But before 1956, men could have, even Hindu men could
polygamy
have thousands of, wives, and women didn't have any right to get any property. And in Bangladesh, Hindus are having this kind of law, kind of based on Shastra. Women have no right to divorce their husband. Men have the right to marry as many as they want. And also women have no right to get any kind of property from their parents. So also we want uniform civil code in Bangladesh. But here, the Muslim men do not want any uniform civil code. In Bangladesh, Hindu men do not want any uniform civil code. They want those Hindu Shastra so that they can enjoy their property, but women
I don't know what Shastra they're referring to, but, that people sometimes quote Manu Smriti, which is composed by multiple people, but there isn't anything definitive in the Hindu Shastra, especially not the way where women are treated as second-class citizens. In fact, in the Vedas, women were taking part in the yajna and had property rights.
Hindus
choosing
in Bangladesh
partners
do not have any property rights. So
in Bangladesh.
So
that's sort of
so we
an
are
oddity.
fighting for that. So uniform civil code is very important. Everywhere. Look, any civilized country will see that uniform civil code. So one law for, one country, everybody.
So would you like to read another poem, since the last one for this session, since we're interspersing realpolitik with poetry?
Feminist poems, because, I encourage many women who used to wear burqa or hijab, or many women who thought that, who were dependent on their husbands. After reading my books, they started taking a job and they become independent financially. And many people who were very fundamentalists, they also, after reading my books, became very agnostic or atheist. So I think this is an
Your
achievement.
words are working in quiet ways.
Yeah, it's a much better reward than other. Dot. Okay. Should I read a poem?
Happy marriage, is that?
Happy marriage. Actually, it's not very happy, though.
We were discussing marriage also earlier.
Yeah, because you are not married, you want to get married.
No, I didn't say I want to get married. I asked you if you had ever been married, and then you asked me the same thing, and then we discussed men in our particular region, which we shouldn't on stage. No, it's not nice.
Happy marriage. My life, like a sandbar, has been rolled over by a monster of a man. He wants my body beneath him so that if he wishes, he can slap me on the cheek, can spit in my face, and roughly pinch my rear. If he wishes, he can rip off my clothes and take the naked beauty in his grip. If he wishes, he can pull out my eyes. If he wishes, he can chain my feet. If he wishes, he can, with no qualms whatsoever, whip on me like the wind. If he wishes, he can chop off my hands, slice open my fingers. If he wishes, he can salt my open wounds. He can throw ground black pepper in my eyes. I am the wife. So, if he wishes, he can slash my thigh with a dagger, string me up and hang me. In my lonely house at night, sleepless, full of anxiety, clutching at the window grill, he wanted my heart under his control. I would wait for him and sob. He poured himself over my heart so that I would love him. My tears rolling down, I bake homemade bread. He wanted my heart so that I would drink as if they were ambrosia, the filthy liquids of his philandering body, so that, loving him, I would melt like wax. Not turning my eyes towards any other man, I would give proof of my chastity all my life, so that, loving him, on some moonlit night, I would die by suicide in a fit of ecstasy.
And it's called Happy Marriage. Says
The
it
name-
all.
The name of the poem is Happy Marriage. Yeah.
I want to just open this up to the audience. If there's, maybe we can take a question or two. Oh, wow. The lady in front, please. And then we'll come to you, and that'll be it.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. And my question related to Kolkata and Bengal, since you lived there long time. So, Kolkata always has been recognized for its cultural dome and cultural city. So, are you thinking that cultural glory is declining gradually or down-regulated in recent days or time? If you think why it's a prime cause.
No, I think that still, if the Bengali culture is practiced there I think it's not that. No, once upon a time when in 30s and 40s there were great Bengali writers who encouraged young people to write better, and they encourage, they also publish their writings, and they helped these young writers. But nowadays, it's not like that. It's more competition. We see that they don't try to, about Bengali kakras. When they go up and try to, and then they try to take them down. And I think that Bengalis are very good for that. Like somebody there.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Ashish Kumar Jha. Ma'am, I just want to say thank you for this reciting this poem. I was in shock. I was in completely shock, and I just got a cultural shock, I guess. And the moment you ended the recitation of that poem, I just went outside and bought this book, and I just want your autograph here so that it will mark the change in me. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, first of all, heartiest welcome for coming to this festival of ours. It's been a pleasure listening to you. We've all aware of the turbulent times, and the difficult times you have faced personally and around you. But we would like to know what are the things which give you little, things of joy, small things, which would make you bring a smile to your face, maybe, and just let you forget, even for a minute, whatever has happened or transpired in the past, things which would just bring sheer happiness to your face or to you. I mean,
Yeah,
in everyday life, like as humans, we have to go on living despite facing lots of problems. I'm sure each one of has their own share of trouble.
yeah, I
times
have
and-
some friends, and I
Yes.
think that I have good sense of humor, so it is not all the time I'm crying and I'm sad. No. So I laugh and I meet friends and I go out and I go to restaurants, cafe, and have good time. It's not that I'm all the time. Thank you, thank you.
I have a question. What gives you the courage to keep writing? And has your own family ever asked you why?
What did you say?
What gives you the courage
Oh.
for your writings?
So I don't think that I'm very courageous or I have done very courageous thing. I think that everybody should have done what I have done. I have spoken the truth, and I think that it is very, very important to tell the truth. And I don't know why people do not tell the truth. So I didn't think what would happen afterwards. I thought that, when I was very young, my father told me always to tell the truth. So I did. When I found all the inequalities and injustices in society, then I said that those are inequalities and injustice. And so that the people who do not like any justice and equality for women, equality for, other people who are not enjoying equality, then they attacked me. Even I was attacked in India.
Yes.
I was attacked, physically attacked in Hyderabad and also in
Ere the iron chair was thrown on
Aurangabad.
you.
I wanted to go to Ellora, Ajanta, and I was not allowed to enter Aurangabad. So whole airport was out by by Islamists, and they said that I had no right to go to
I mean, it's
enter
appalling that
Aurangabad.
people would think they have the right or the control over another human being's life like this.
Yeah, it's happening in so many places. You know that what happened in Murshidabad in
Yes.
West Bengal.
Yes.
So some people think that here that Muslim cannot attack Hindus, but they do.
They do. Yes.
But we cannot imagine that in Bangladesh. The minority Hindus just get attacked by Islamists. But anyway, I think that nobody should attack
Anyone.
others.
Yeah.
There should be peace and not like Dr. Yunus kind of peace. Since he came to power in Bangladesh, not a single day Bangladesh have seen any kind of peace.
He's an appointee also. He isn't really, I think he's been put there by Western governments. By Western governments, he's not really anyone who's risen.
He's 84 years old. He should leave the country and give it to that there should be election and whoever politicians should come. And, it is, if I were him, I would have done that because he doesn't know politics, but he's very revengeful. See, he's taking revenge against Hasina. He destroyed all the houses and museums of that 1971
Yes.
war, and also he encouraged people to destroy Sheikh Mujib's house. And all the statues of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the freedom fighters were destroyed. And he said that it's okay. He didn't take any action against those people who destroyed everything. And
So, I mean, if Aung San Suu Kyi has been downgraded from being a Nobel Prize
yeah,
winner,
also
then
Yunus.
Yunus should also face
Yeah.
the same. That would be fair. But the interesting irony is that Sheikh Hasina never really stood up for you when she should have, and now she finds herself in exile in India as well.
Yeah.
Karma, as we say in Hinduism.
So many people ask me whether I met Sheikh Hasina. So in some report I have read that she walks sometimes in Lodi Garden. Then I said that, okay, I also go for walk in Lodi Garden. If I meet her, I will ask, how do you feel? Exile life?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was an honor to listen to you. And now I request Mrs. Bharti Bhargav to present the token of appreciation, please.
Thank you.
Please give a huge round of applause.
आप सभी से निवेदन है कि आप अपने अपने कुर्सियों पर कृपा करके बैठे रहें जब तक हमारी मेहमान हॉल से बाहर ना निकल जाएं। आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और आभार तस्लीमा जी हमारे बीच।
Applause. He is in conversation with Anup Sharma, an award-winning strategic communication